show you this finger. Hey, UK222. How are you, James? Nice to see you too. I saw Jack had put your YouTube channel on his car. Also put your name on his car. Very nice of him. What a lovely bit of energy that Jack coming back. Jack and Lisa coming all the way from Slovenia. His parents, a pretty nice car actually. I think it's a Fiat Panda, which is the same car that Adam Meakin got stolen in Rome by those Nazis, or the Mussolini look-alike. Another special moment, and I know you put some good video together for that. So thanks again for that. Ricardo, you're still awake? You're definitely a night owl. Have I told you I spent a little time in Chicago back in 1988? Yeah, I've got a fondness for that part of the world. Because of my time there, I spent I think maybe 3 or 4 weeks at a country club called Oak Park Country Club in the suburbs somewhere of Chicago. It was a fairly high-end country club, and I winterized golf clubs, and most of the most money I earned was doing valet work. People would come along to these events and hand you over their keys, and you park the car and then collect it and so on. And I was unique in that I was happy with the stick shift, and some of the valets couldn't do a stick shift because there's so many automatic cars in America. Some people can only drive automatics. Hey, guess what I've got? These. Check this out. Oh, you were choked when you put... Yeah, well, I was choked up too when he told me he was going to do it. He told me he was going to put my name on, back on the tour. He said, Dave, well, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to sticker up a car, and it'll definitely have your name on it. So I was grateful that he did that, but I was, especially choked by what he said. So I get the sentiment. You were asleep earlier enjoying the day from work. Yeah, okay, I'm glad you know it. Oak Park is just west of Chicago. Yeah. There was a fire started actually. One night I was working there, and like these curtains got on fire, and I just quickly put the fire out, and no one even knew about it. No one really knew about it. But I was pretty on the ball then. I was only 20 years old. A couple of things that came to mind that I wanted to talk about. I watched a bit of Owen Benjamin talking to Crow 777. I'm not on DLive yet. I guess I'm a creature of habit, and I haven't gotten off of YouTube. He was on one of his subscribers, or a couple of his subscribers. They clip videos and they put it out onto YouTube. And I was watching something on YouTube. He was talking to Crow 777. And Crow and his research pal, his name is, I should remember his name. Anyway, Crow is a really good researcher, and I learned an awful lot from Crow. In the first hour of his stuff, I've never paid for the second hour. Not that I wouldn't do, it's just that I don't have coin to be spending on things like that. But they were talking about distilled water, and it made me think I wanted to talk about that, because Benjamin is just getting into the distilled water thing. It is interesting watching this guy, because he's fascinating to listen to. He does bring some information out, but he's also, he's also sort of just waking up, isn't he? So, he still believes in Trump, and the point about the distilled water is that he's not absolutely sure about which way to go with it, and I know that we can add salt to it, and I think adding a little bit of Himalayan salt is probably the best advice I've heard if you're going to add anything. But in my opinion, guys and girls, the salts and the minerals we need are going to come from your food, what you eat. Was a qualified fitness consultant and so on. That was probably my first passion as a youngster, was working in the gym industry. But we never ever made a diet plan and said, well, what you need is these minerals and nutrients, some of which will come from your food and some of which will come from your water. And if any of them are to come from your water, you're going to trust your local authority to add those for you? I don't think so. But if you're confused about, because Benjamin, I think it was, this is what annoyed me about it, was Crow said, whatever his real name is, Crow said, it will leach minerals from your body, but you need to put them back in through your food. As far as I can tell, and I'm a little bit kind of full moony this morning, so you're gonna feel this from me, I think. As far as I can tell, it's not going to leach organic minerals. It's going to leach inorganic minerals out of your body. And why I'm so sure about this, and why I felt I should tell you this, is because I used to catch rainwater, and I used to measure rainwater, and guess how many parts per million of crap or minerals are in the rainwater? 0. None. Okay. Even if I used a dirty bucket, I would only score 3 or 4 parts per million for the rainwater. And nature intended for us to drink rainwater. So we're meant to catch the rainwater and so on. The minerals that get gathered up in the river and so on, that add something to the water in terms of the flavor or the taste or whatever they're used to, are small bits of rock. They're just crushed up little bits of rock, and those little bits of rock are going to pass through you. You're going to sit on the toilet and you're going to lose those little bit of rocks. But we're in a water supply. The rocks, pieces of rock are so small they can get caught up in your body, and they can cause you harm, macular degeneration, arthritis, all these sorts of things. Aside from the fact that there might be chlorines and so on in your city water, fluoride, of course. I think it's important that we try and leach these things back out of our body, but don't fear it. I've had to, for a few months, I've had to go back to regular water while we didn't have our distiller running. I think it probably affected my eyesight, because I feel like my eyesight has taken a backward step over the last few months. I definitely feel that. So, the other thing about it I want to say is I had fluoride tablets given to me as a child. Every morning we'd look forward to eating these tiny little pink tablets. I'm assuming that it hasn't done me irreparable harm, and that I'm reasonably okay. So yeah, that was a little annoying, because I don't know how much time Crow spent looking into distilled water. He didn't claim to be like very well versed on it, but the point is that he's just adding to the kind of fear porn and the disinfo about distilled water. Distilled water is pure water. Distilled water is rainwater. Rainwater is distilled water. I think rain is, yes, I was taught the hydrology process, how the sun heats the sea and lakes and pulls the water back up into the sky, and then it cools down and then it comes back down as rain. And I accept that process is happening possibly, but only adds to part of the equation when it comes to rainwater. I think rainwater may also be the effect of may come from the roof or the lid of this place as well, so that when the energy point that is the sun moves across the sky, whether it's above the firmament or below the firmament, it's causing a sort of melting of of some of the frozen stuff that's up on the roof, on the lid of this place. So I think that, as well as raising water off the sea and and returning that as rain, I think maybe some of the water is brand new, fresh stuff from this cycle that brings it off the roof. I hope that's useful. Let me just quickly say hello to some. Hey, Mark. The Hygienic Society prescribed distilled water. Yeah, nice to see you, mate. Yeah, I mean, as I say, rainwater is pure. It is clean. It is without minerals. You can, as I say, add some salt to your water, but aren't you putting salt in your food? And the point is that I really don't think that this is going to be leaching minerals from your body. Otherwise, anyone collecting rainwater would have, for their lifetime, and drinking rainwater for their lifetime, would have serious health complications. And God, our Creator, the source of, Mother Nature, Gaia, whatever, would not have created a situation where it was like, all right, well, we're going to give you rainwater to drink, but before you drink it, you need to add these 5 salts, these 5 minerals, and so on. Cell salts came up, and the Schussler salts I used to use when I had an income. I think we do need to have minerals, salts in our diet, and it can cause health complications if you don't. It may be the case that our soil has been robbed of a lot of the nutrients, and therefore your vegetables and fruit are somewhat deficient. But again, this is speculation. So I hope that's useful. Guys, I've had quite a lot of good feedback from the conversation on the 8 inches per mile squared. I wanted to add something more to it. Obviously, there isn't curvature on our Earth. It is a complete nonsense. But the reason why I think this conversation or this clarification is useful is because 8 inches in the first mile and by 32 inches, etc., as you go away, is not an awful lot of curvature. And so for the first 5 and 10 miles that you and I can see, or maybe a little further if we're using cameras, the amount of curvature is still, is it there, isn't it there, isn't it there, is it there? And I know at 10 miles, 66 feet is a lot of curvature, and we should lose ships, we shouldn't be able to see street lights or things like that over 10 miles and so on. So I accept that. And I'm not saying what my numbers are absolutely spot on, but I'm troubled. I'm eager to express to you that the the amount of curve drop at 8 inches per mile squared is not that much, and therefore a lot of people, when they hear it, when I say to someone, "Oh, it's 8 inches and mile squared," well, firstly, the mile squared gets people. Some people are not mathematically inclined, so they already glaze over. But 8 inches is not a lot. I mean, obviously, if you're a bloke and that's fine. But in terms of looking off a mile, 8 inches is imperceptible, really. So you wouldn't really be able to say, "Oh yeah, there definitely." However, this other number that I've come up with, which is 1 mile should have 0.6 of a mile of curvature, is insane. It's so much curvature that everybody would only need that to have that pointed out to them, to say, "Look, this is their maths, or this is these are those dimensions." Now, I don't have. I was talking to my Clint about it yesterday, and he said I get AutoCAD and try and plug it in. I don't have AutoCAD. I was given a laptop by Nigel the other day, a mate of mine, and it's oh, we'll see whether it works. I've been trying to install Windows 7 because the Vista program that it's on, because it's a 9-year-old laptop, is not able to run StreamYard, because I'm keen to start doing some interviews, start having hangouts, things like that. But I got a piece of paper and I created a graph paper and plotted this, and I wasn't getting it right, because I think what most of us do is, you see that we think we're going out so much and down so much, out so much and down so much. Well, that's not how you would travel over the earth. You would travel around like this, and we know that this distance here is not the same as running down this distance here. So my plotting didn't work very well. But I want to offer you guys this to think about. If we had to say to someone, you stand on the beach, you watch your ship leave your port, mile 1 it's 8 inches, by mile 2 it's 32 inches, and by mile 10 it's 60 feet down. Therefore, most of that ship, if not all of that ship, has gone over the curve. The problem I think that we've been fed with this mile squared thing is the following, and why I think it matters is because people will never be able to get it, because we all know that the ball has to be bending and away from the point of the viewer. Eventually it's bending, it's getting more and more extreme. But think about it like this, and perhaps this is how a lot of globalists think about it, and why they won't jump on board, is because, and you have to know that why I'm saying these things is really I'm trying to help the conversation along. Some people have said in the comments section, "Look, we already know, we're happy with the 8 inches per mile squared, so shut up, that's good enough." Well, they just like, to me, they just sound like globers going, "We already know this, so what are you even doing? It's already, the maths has been well established. The science is already, 500 years of, 2,000 years of Copernicus, and all this crap." Well, let's not fall into the same trap again, friends, and say, "Well, we were given," and none of us can actually test 8 inches per mile squared because it doesn't exist. 8 inches per mile squared isn't there. Yes, there is an amount of obfuscation or ocular, interference that occurs because you're down at the beach, because your eyes are limited, because there's waves and bulges and swell and angular resolution and all these things. So they can kind of offer us that small amount of curve drop. or perceived curve drop, I should say. So I want you to think about it like this. If I was to put like a raft, a raft, it's obviously at the sea level, it's right on the water, and I'm going to get 9 of your friends, or 10 of your friends to sit on one of 10 rafts, and each raft is going to be spaced 1 mile, exactly 1 mile away from the harbor where the ship is leaving. And each of your friends is going to have a little walkie-talkie, and as the ship arrives at mile marker 1, you're going to ask your friend in mile marker 1 to say, how far is the ship going to descend to mile marker 2? He will reply 8 inches. Keep doing that, mile marker 2 to mile marker 3. Ask him, how far is the ship going to descend? 8 inches. So in reality, by the time you get to mile marker 10, each of your friends would have told you for sure, only 8 inches. Not squared, just 8 inches. Which means that by 10 miles, the ship could only have gone down if you actually put barges on the water and ask each friend at each mile marker how much it's going to go down. It would have only have gone down 80 inches and not 800 inches. I made this point in the video. And that by the 499th mile to the 500th mile marker, your friends, good, they're a long way away from you now, but they would say the ship is still only going to go down 8 inches. So everyone, I know you were just saying, oh, but it's from the point of the viewer. But in reality, if the view has only descended 8 inches on this, we're working in a hypothetical, we live on a crazy, cartoon, Disney, PlayStation game. But according to these 10 pals, you've only gone down 80 inches. But if I'm standing on the beach and I'm looking out 500 miles, I'd say to my friend at the 499th mile, I'd say, look, the ship is about to go down, do you remember this? It's about to go down 666 feet. From the 499 to the 500 mile, it's 660 feet, which from the ship's point of view is obviously quite a lot of extreme drop. From your pal's point of view, the 499, he said, no, it's only 8 inches. It's only 8 inches. So there is a conundrum built into the miles squared thing. And I think why we all adopted the miles squared thing is because we know that there is an extreme amount of drop, and that by the time you get to, can you see that? By the time you get to the equator from your starting point at the North Pole, you need to have descended 4,000 miles. And the only way, it felt like the only way to do that was to have an ever-increasing curve. Why we were happy with the 8 inches per mile, I was happy with the 8 inches per mile squared, was because we know that in the short distance, there's no curve, almost no curve to be seen. So they've almost played, I feel like we've been played, where they've gone, we can't really see any curve close by. And as someone said in the comments, wow, so if you were to, if it was to drop down by, if it was to go out if it was to go out a mile and down 0.6 of a mile, which isn't quite right, it's got to be around the skin of the earth, because there's a difference. It's a different line of travel, isn't it, versus straight out here. I hope I'm not losing you on this, but you've got to travel around the skin of the earth, and as you do that, by 1 mile, you should have dropped down 0.6 of a mile. And someone said, oh, if that were true, we'd be living on an orange or something tiny. Well, I don't think so. I think that, you've still got to remember, you got 12,000 miles thereabouts from pole to pole, but you've got 8,000 miles of drop from pole to pole. So you could reduce that down to minimize it down. You could have a 12-mile ball. A 12-mile. Half of the circumference could be 12 miles, and the drop from pole to pole would be 8 miles. You can reduce that down, yes, to a much smaller device, ball. You could say it's 12 inches from pole to pole if you follow the skin, or 8 inches if you go down through that. So it doesn't really matter. You can scale this up and down. I mean, in the same way as this globe has been scaled up. And that in order to travel this distance here, which is about 40 centimeters over the skin of this ball from pole to pole, you will drop through it about 30 centimeters. You will go down 30 centimeters, but around 40 centimeters. So it's almost like I mean, it's like, as I say, it's 0.6, one mile or 1 centimeter out or down over the skin at the same time as dropping down 0.6 of that measure, whatever that measure is. Now, people are like, oh, Jorn, well, what the difference, again, what difference does it make? Well, I say it makes a huge difference because, and I would like to put this into AutoCAD. I'm trying to get that done, but I've got a feeling that the reason, for me, the reason it matters is because if I was to stand in the street and say to someone, we've done the math, as I've done, I've said to people, oh, people have put this into AutoCAD, 8 inches per mile squared, and it works right for the first 1,000. That's not good enough. I don't think that's good enough. I think how is it not working right the entire time? And as someone said, oh yeah, but if you do the entire formula, if you go the first quarter of the globe, what's that, 6,000 miles odd? If you do the first quarter of the globe, and you do the 8 inches per mile squared, by the time you get to the quarter point, you have descended the 4,000 miles that's required. Now, I accept that that's not necessarily inaccurate, but what I don't accept is that in a reality in which the sphere is always bending at exactly the same amount, then anything traveling over it, and this is what we use as our argument to people. We say, oh, look, a ship because don't forget, this is where the magic is happening, okay? We keep saying, oh, but it's from the point of the observer. Well, it's not the point of the observer when we're talking about a ship traveling over water. And it doesn't need to be a ship traveling over water. It can simply be the water. For a ship to travel over water and bend equally as she travels over the water, then the water has to be descending. Forget the viewer. The viewer, I think, is part of the deception. The viewer, they've used the Mick West thing, and it's 6 feet off the ground, it's 1 foot off the ground, and so on. That's neither here nor there. What's important is that the ball of water is bending always equally at the same amount. The ball of water is bending equally the same amount, so the land mass that you can see at 10 miles, the ship that you can see at 10 miles, has to conform to the rules of a perfect sphere and how much that bends. And I'm saying that 8 inches per mile squared is a perversion of this Disney reality, because this Disney reality would be always bending at the same amount, not becoming exponentially steeper depending on me. It's a form, as I said in my video, it's a form of relativistic thinking. So, oh, well, where I stand, the formula starts from 8 inches. But where you are, because you're either 10 miles away from me, that means that the 9th mile to the 10th mile is going to drop down by 10, 15 feet or whatever it is. But if you're standing there where you are at 10 miles and you look around you, everything is only going to be bending down at 8 inches in that first mile. Well, that's bullshit, right? That's nonsense. That's poppycock, guys. And I'm trying to help you unpick yet another layer of programming. That's why I'm saying this stuff. So I do appreciate those people who are who are at least willing to kind of rethink this. I'm not saying I have the answer, but I'm saying that the 8 inches squared, miles squared, is flawed. Because as I said at the beginning, if you missed me the sayings at the beginning, if you put 10 barges or 10 pontoons on the water's edge, on the water, 1 mile apart, ask your friends to tell you how much the ship is descending or ascending for the mile that they can see. They will all report 8 inches. And that's not enough. Because all those 8 inches put together would only mean that the ship, when I reported black, I would say, well, the ship, according to my 10 pals, has descended by 80 inches. But my maths demands that it's squared, so it's 660 feet. Well, I'm sorry, that doesn't work in reality, or in this fictional version of reality that we've been programmed to propagate. And I'll say it again. It's 12 units, or 12 and a half units. Forget whether it's miles, kilometers, inches, or whatever. It's 12 and a half units over the skin from pole to pole, and 8 units down. Yeah. So for every 1.2, let's take the decimal point off that. So for every 1.2 units, whether it's inches, centimeters, or whatever, you've got to come down by 0.8 of a unit, which is a huge amount. It's an insane amount, because it's insane to think that you could live on a ball anyway. But the dimensions given of this insanity say that it's 12 and a half units, 12,500 miles or thereabouts, and 8,000 miles down. So let's just make it 12 and a half centimeters and 8 centimeters down. And it's always perfectly spherical. And it shouldn't make any difference as to whether I start here, here, or here. I'm always going to be traveling over an evenly bending. My ship is always going to be evenly bending. Now, my father's a shipping man. So when I presented him in 2015, 2016 with 8 inches per mile square, I now know why he doesn't really, he thinks I'm a fool now. And can barely talk to me. I send him the David Weiss interview. I hope you've seen it. I'm sure most people have. It's been mirrored all over the shop. The David Weiss conversation with that 102-year-old lady, Ruth. What a diamond she is. And what a diamond David is for the work that he does and for having grabbed that. It's inspirational, and certainly I'll be trying to find an interview a bit like that, because it is what's brilliant, tear-jerkingly brilliant. I send my dad that, actually. I don't send him stuff. He sent me something. We didn't even send each other Christmas greetings and stuff like that. He'd normally send me a little bit of coin at Christmas time. Didn't even get any of that from him. He sent me something ridiculous. So he sent me something ridiculous a month or two ago. So I felt like I had an opportunity to send him something. So I sent him the Dave Weiss interview with Ruth. But he sent me something which was in the propaganda pages, where two children had put one in Spain or somewhere, and the other in Australia or New Zealand, had put a slice of bread on the ground and used Google Earth to ascertain exactly where 180 degrees opposite from each other was, and they called it in the newspaper an Earth sandwich or a globe sandwich, something like that. My father took the liberty of sending me that. How annoying is that? 1 second, guys. I just need to throw some wood on the fire. Oh, I'm a bit stiff staying sitting like that. that didn't. That's a bit weird. So I'm going to have the opportunity to talk more about this, because you know me, I'm like you guys. You know, when you got like a dog with a bone, when you got a bee in your bonnet, you need to work it out. And I'm super convinced using just using the 10-mile markers. We know that each of those individual mile markers would say the next mile is only 8 inches down. So what is it? Is it 8 inches down per mile? Or is it 8 inches per mile squared because I'm standing 10 miles away? And we just accepted this, and it makes it believable. Oh yeah, it's possible because we can't see that ship at 10 miles, that there is that curvature there. Well, if it's a mile and it's 0.6 of a mile down, then you only need a half a mile to make the point. You only need a few hundred meters to make the point. So I'm going to continue pushing this on, because you know, even if I'm slightly off, or if I'm off a bit, I'm pretty sure that the mile squared has been fed to us as disinfo. That's where I'm at. I'm feeling a little bit kind of, what's the word, militant right now. I in fact, I kicked some dude off my channel yesterday. He's a flat earth dude, but I don't particularly care for his comments. And he made some comments about some jokes, oh yeah, you're just joking about homosexuality, or you know, being tied up by outside public toilets. I'd be scared of the gays, or something like that. And it's like, dude, what kind of a child mind is still thinking that all this way down, you know? And he said, oh, you're being a beta male, you know. Well, how's this for alpha male? You're fucking gone. Never come back. Hi, Gracie. Yeah, the 66 comes in all over. I mean, the numbers that I've got here have got sixes in them all over the place. But again, you know, this is even the 24,000, what's it, 24,905 or whatever, 904. I started to wonder about that, because it's a similar number to the number of years that our precession of the equinox is said to take. It may not be the exact same number, but then again, well, I know the precession of the equinox has been pretty well. I think they talk in terms of 72-year minutes and stuff like that, don't they? So I think that might be spot on. But it is a very similar number to the number of years in the precession of the equinox. Well, there might be some coding in that. But, you know, they probably reverse engineered these things so that it would come back with all these sixes. You know, that just the same with all the 66,000 miles per hour around the sun, or whatever. Speaking of that, did you guys see the moon? I don't know if it was different in different parts of the world, but for us, Andrea and I, Alexander, we were driving off to the shops last night about 7 o'clock. We got Alexander a new ball. He tried to play with three girls. Were little girls were playing hide and seek with each other, and he saw that, and he wanted to join in, and so I let him down, put him down, and he sort of ran over to these girls, but he tried to join in. I mean, he's smaller than them all, and they looked at him like he was weird. Like, oh, what's this boy doing coming to just join our group kind of thing, you know? Poor lad. Anyway, we saw the moon last night rising or approaching, and it was just cresting. I mean, there was a little bit of cloud, but it was like it was rising. It was so close to our sort of ground level, and it was humongous, orange and huge. I did take a photo of it, and they never come out very well on the phone. And of course, getting a sense of the scale of it is very difficult, because even if you fill your lens with it, you can't really contrast it with something else and say, look how much bigger it is today than it was yesterday, or it is going to be in 2 hours time when you look at it again. And of course, we could all say it's atmospheric lensing and other sorts of factors and features that are causing it to look like that. But it is quite a mystery, the moon. It was full on Sunday, wasn't it? So it's still almost a full moon, but I'm feeling that. I'm feeling that energy. I feel like I'm in kind of like a holding pattern here in this place in Norwich. This is only a temporary stay, a temporary place to be, and so on. And it's obviously awesome. So grateful to have this place for us to catch our breath a little bit and balance things. But we're obviously thinking and talking hard about how we go and where we go, and how it's going to play out, and what our role is going forward. Andrew and I were having a really interesting discussion last night, which I thought it would be nice to share this conversation. But once you turn the camera on, it's hard to kind of keep talking in the same vein, because you're really unpacking like your heart and your certainties about what this is about. We were like, I'll summarize it by saying, there's two or three ways of going forward. We've learned all this stuff. We've discovered that we're divine. We are of the Creator, and we are here to learn something, to encounter something, experience something. And the entirety of our reality has been rigged. The entirety of our reality has been made by some God level or Satan level energy, cleverness. And it has been done with the purpose of giving you a soul journey, or satanic stealing of God's children or God's energy. So what do you do about that? You've learned all of this that you've learned. Do you cozy up to your job, your situation, and just, I'm never going to talk about it to my family. I'm never going to call this system out. I'm going to just keep earning my earns and paying my bills and all that sort of thing? Or are you going to go, hey, this thing is a complete deception, and you need to do the soul work, and you can do the soul work even if you're staying in your 9 to 5. I'm sure you can. Well, I think you can. I'm not sure, but I think you can. I don't want to make even a judgment about that. It's not for me to say. It's an individual journey. But the other option is, so you got the two options. One is you just kind of shut up, and go on with you just go along, carry on paying your golf club subs, and just pretend it's okay. I think not many of us can take the Owen Benjamin route at this point in time anyway, of setting up a homestead and so on. But do you take that option, that other option, which is to kind of divorce yourself from this reality as much as you can, in a staged way or in an explosive way? And do you seek to become like, as someone who is calling this system out, who is, maybe that's not the right words I'm looking for, someone who is finding that other way, that alternate way, that way that doesn't cozy up or pretend, that everything is, so there's two ways, isn't there, guys? There's either the kind of just yep, you've heard that the earth is flat and don't worry about that, or you know that the earth is flat, and you know that you're a spiritual entity, and maybe you do the spiritual work, but you just keep on sticking with the reality you have. Or do you seek to be the change, seek to deliver a future in which this satanic or this because whatever you want to call it, Satan or just man kind of gone bad, the system is completely wrong. The system is completely deceiving you. It is poisoning you. It is poisoning your children, mind, body, and soul. I am naturally one of those people that wants to take the latter option. I will not go quietly. I will not shut up. I will not just drink your poison and eat your poison without putting up a resistance, without seeking to find a new way. When I went to war as a child, as a 19-year-old boy, I was willing to do that and be the best at it, because I believed that there was something to defend ourselves from, this communism, this whatever lie that I was involved in. Now, 8 inches per mile squared may be a lie. The globe may be a lie. But we must know that we are being deceived at every level. And there is no getting around that. So you can either be one of those people that just kind of, sits in the comments section and talks shit about the system, but never actually does anything in your day-to-day life to kind of change your world. You can be that. Or you can be someone who agitates for truth, change, and a rising of the good, or a setting aside of the evil, the negative, the poison. Are we going to get a helping hand from up high, from the sky clock, from the heavens, from Mother Nature? I in my heart, I feel like I started this journey in 2015. By the end of 2015, I was like, this is going, I need to do something. I actually have to do something, but it's going to be uncomfortable because I've been, reading comment sections. I've been in the comment section already for some time. So I saw how much guys were fighting it. So I knew it was going to be a little bit of time, but I didn't think it would be long. It would be like a year or stuff. So I would put myself through a year of discomfort of telling people stuff they didn't want to hear. And then eventually the damn wall would break and people would en masse begin to change the world. Well, I think that if that's going to happen, we need God level involvement. And perhaps this is where we're at. There is God level involvement. And it is going to go that way. It is going to be that kind of age of Aquarius type, cataclysmic, and I don't necessarily mean mud flood cataclysmic, but some kind of like remembering, some kind of mass consciousness rising. I was speaking to one of the cleaners over at the main house yesterday, and she sort of shown a bit of interest. Asked me the other day about, I'd spoken briefly about mud flood, and so she's like, I like your ideas actually, and she said, yes, I think there's a consciousness rising and so on. And I'm mindful that, the new age kind of things looms large, and that could just be, just like the 8 inches squared, could be just more clever Satan level, deception of truth about, or how this game must continue. And I say to Andrew, look, it is possible. We've got to allow for the possibility that this cycle of souls coming in and out, dying in, learning or not learning, and being misled has been going on for so many thousands of years, that it just continues. It just continues. The few people work it out, and in their lifetimes they're able to make a change, a little church of people who go on and do some good soul work for themselves and raise their own vibration. But really, that the game must continue. The game down here at this lower level gets to continue, and it never gets to become an Eden. And maybe that's true. And actually, when you read comments like the dude that I kicked off the channel yesterday, these are flat earthers of years who are still spiritually retarded. And I don't mean that in like their kind of broken body way. I just mean held back, unable to kind of make those spiritual steps forward. And I see this perhaps in myself. I don't want to just be looking at others. The spiritual growth is retarded by fighting over 8 inches, fighting over being able to pay the bills. I feel somewhat retarded by my situation, in that I'm cobbling it together. I'm holding it together. We were meant to pay our road tax at the beginning of the month, and then it's the 10th or the 11th of February, and we've still not done that. If you don't think that has a poison in my soul, to think, shit, I could get pulled, my car, if I'm not careful, could get, what they do nowadays is they have these cars that drive around with cameras. They got the automatic number plate recognition system. Your tax isn't up to date. They pull over. They put a clamp on the wheel, and you don't go anywhere until it's paid. they might even, because you registered your car and it's therefore owned by the Queen, she can decide to take your car away and crush it. The place that we're staying at now, this is, a few more weeks, and then it's over. Yeah, and then it's like, okay, so where am I next, and what's my next for Alexander, for Andrea? My older children, they need a home. So I feel, held back by these constraints, and it affects my soul work. Okay, so I know that there's lots of people that are in this kind of truth community who are really struggling to take those next steps, and it definitely retards the soul growth, the soul development, the spiritual rising, or maybe it's just part of the kind of the painful transition. It sounds a bit new agey, but I confess that our conversation with Andrea last night is like, look, there comes a point at which you go, how much longer can I continue this battle to spread truth at such a cost to my well-being and my emotional state of mind? I was saying how I'm reflecting on how I don't have as much energy to play games with Alexander at the moment. That's stealing from him, stealing from me, that experience. So I wouldn't knock someone for saying, you know what, I see all of this, but I can't throw everything away, or in this material world, on the faith that in this lifetime or in this next year there is going to be that awakening that makes it worth making my life desperately difficult. Because there's so many things. As I say, my family don't talk to me, my sisters and my father. I'm a kind of like a pariah. We've had some very generous contributions, over this last month, and it has put food on the table and fuel in the tank. But I mean, here we are. It's Tuesday. As I said, I can't tax my car. I can't even be sure that I'm going to have petrol. We can't be here this weekend because this place is booked out over this coming weekend. So we're planning on driving down to London, or over to London. And I don't yet know how I'm going to put fuel in the tank to get there. And this is bullshit. And this is a bullshit way of living. And there's very little that can be said about it that's spiritual. We could make biblical references and so on to why the hardship is an important thing, but my children have to feel that. My wife has to feel that. So it's I didn't expect it to take so long. As I said, 2015, end of 2015, when I started kind of making noise about this, I thought it'll be a little bit of a discomfort for a while, and then everybody will see it. And maybe the reason why people can't see it is because 8 inches is fuck all. Yeah, 8 inches is fuck all. .6 of a mile, that's a shed of curvature. You know, a 1 in 0.6 kind of drop, because 12 and a half, 8. Yeah, just do a simple division and say how much am I meant to descend, and my ship. And that's what we're asking people to look at. Look at the ship. Look at the ship. Look at the ship. It's going down 8 inches, 32 inches, whatever the next one is, 72 inches. Look at the ship. Well, the ship's not going down very much in 3 miles. And that's where my vision ends. And then I'll go, shut up, I can't see it. 72 inches, already the bottom of the ship, according to Bill Nye, has gone away. But if at 3 miles it's meant to be already a mile and a half down, you know that that's not real. You know that that's, no one can accept that. No one's going to say, oh yeah, well, I can see it going down a mile and a half in 3 miles. Of course it's not. And of course that sounds absolutely spastic ridiculous. Because we've all been programmed to think 8 inches. 8 inches is nothing. Unless you're playing the lover. So, I'm going to say, wow, Broadsword said he was just in London on a bus. There's 14 cameras on one bus. Yeah. This is. We live in Big Brother. We are living in Big Brother, and we are just, most of us, just blithely going along with it. And Andrew and I talked about the movie Insurgent, Divergent, and there's a third one in the series, I forget. But we do think that that's some kind of predictive programming of where they want to take the world, and that is that you're either inside our totally controlled, where everything that you do, you see more and more people buying things with their mobile phone. Everything is electronically tracked and traced, and your phone can be switched off. And the youngsters, they just grow up with it. I mean, the seatbelt argument is one of the best examples of that. We grew up when seatbelts, when I was a child, seatbelts weren't legal. And then they became legal for the driver, but not the passenger, and they weren't even in the passenger seat. Then they became legal, then it was expected for the passenger. Now, they've got them in the back seats, and the youngsters, my children's friends, get into the back seats, and they immediately, and we're only going a couple of miles down the road, they immediately put the seat belts on. When we were kids, we were running around the back of the car, you know, and the idea that we would have to wear seat belts was a joke. Now, in my lifetime of driving, I don't think I've had an accident that's required me to have a seatbelt on. Not that I'll put one on. I do wear one. It's become a habit, and in a way, you know, you get used to that level of security. And I assume this is what the children are. They're used to that level of security, and the same with the cameras. They become used to. Hi, morning. Hey, Zizi. They become used to that level of security, with the cameras protecting them, of course. Helmets too in New Hampshire, no seatbelts, helmets required, and carry firearm. Yeah, I spent a little time in New Hampshire, didn't I? The beast system, says Gracie Dane, is bearing down big time. Foot soldier for flat earth truth, hey my friend. You're in limbo, Dave. Time for your rock, Andrea, to advise. She's just arrived. Drew says, everything around me is broken or in disrepair. Can't seem to get caught up. More funds going out than coming in. Yeah. More people become conscious, then reset humanity again. Yeah, I mean, I do wonder about that. I wonder whether there's a, you know, whether you get to a point where we bring about a reset by our consciousness.
We have to bring our equipment, our technology back into operation.
Andrew's very drawn to this idea because we are like these high tech super beings, and our super skills have been dials switched off over generations,
Well,
poisoned,
powerful beings.
and we're meant to return to that, or they don't want us to return to that, because if we do, when we do, we bring about a shift, and the beast goes away.
Well, I don't believe the beast goes away, but I think it's when we start to shift the consciousness. But you have to do that. You have to have an expanded heart, and to have an expanded heart, or to be in your heart. To be in your heart, you have to have confronted some of your own darkness and accepted your darkness, accepted yourself, have self-love, and forgiveness and compassion for yourself. Your heart has to be open, because your heart's a very important piece of equipment, of that equipment. Another one is your imagination and your creativity. Through your imagination, your creativity flows. And your imagination, as it stands, is caught up in, can be very caught up in the wrong thing. And so we're imagining, just think of all the news, the coronavirus, even bad weather will have us thinking and imagining bad things. And when you're imagining amazing things, and you're letting your creativity flow from that, and then you're using your expanded heart as another element of that technology, then you become this creator again. So I think that's where we're supposed to be going. Our technology, or our power has been well, we've given it away, and then we're using our imagination. We're using our imagination to create our own reality, which is one that is filled with hardship, and it is a lack, scarcity, fear program. And whilst we stay in that mindset and imagine that as our reality, then that's what our reality is.
So did you hear that? Andrea feels more sure about that than me, but I do like what she says about that. That it's we are creating our thoughts, create our reality, and we all know the expression. And it may be that over generations we have simply increasingly created that. And of course, the easy example is the security cameras on the buses and so on. And people are clamoring for it. It's the same with the coronavirus. The only way that they can get us into a worldwide vaccine program is for us to say, yes, polio, yes, measles, yes, mumps. These things are so frightening. We're happy to vote for politicians who will vote for a vaccine program.
Well, we imagine
so we're demanding,
so bad that we call for it.
So we're demanding it almost, and there's plenty of people who say, yes, we need these security cameras because someone got stabbed on the bus. And that's why they'll say, oh, we need more, they'll highlight any incident or create an incident that furthers that agenda to say, yes, there's a problem here. The reaction comes, yes, we need more protection, more police, more guns, more cameras, more whatever. Yes, you can spend more of my tax pounds, my tax dollars on security apparatus. So in that way, it's a very easy way of seeing the way that we're creating that.
They're using our technology against us, and we're and because of programming and because of separation, because of behavior patterns.
So you create
because of our soul.
Signature.
And our emotion. I was saying to Dave last night, I think that the space agenda is one of that, where they've got us imagining, morning face, good morning. They've got us imagining all of it, and to very cleverly get the heart involved, they over time have done things like, when the, I've forgotten which one it was, Apollo 13 or whatever, went into space, it crashed and people died. And of course, what does that do? That gets the heart involved with the imagination. It's just something I'm sitting with. I don't know the answers. I'm no different to anybody where I'm feeling my way through this, and it's just something that came to me the other day. Though if we're creator beings, then we must have elements to us that are needed for creation, and you can do that for the good, and you can do that for the bad. And if they are manipulating us, they're using that equipment of ours, or those pieces of us that are creators, for their advantage.
Yeah, and so Hitler's a good example of that, where the problem of Hitler was seen to be such that people demanded, or were willing for action to be taken against Hitler. And I think, actually, as I was thinking, and the Jews too, like, oh, the Jews are such a problem, and so we need to do something against them or for them or whatever. It's just that this is what the system is doing to us. It's creating all of these boogeymen, and then enough grandmas write into their local parliamentarian and say, yes, I demand that you do something. And those parliamentarians, ignorant and brainwashed as they are go, well, yeah, we've got plenty of people demanding that we spend money on war machinery. So let's take a loan from the bank, and in order to pay that back, well, the bank demand that we charge you, income tax. So there you go. That's how you create your current paradigm. But I also think that when I look around at the, just even in the flat Earth world, and as I said, I tossed that dude off my comment section yesterday, because even in the flat Earth world, there are plenty of people who are still knuckle dragging, and they're not representative of what this higher consciousness is that I think that we're meant to be reaching.
But you see, I go back to, if we're going to use what is our birthright, or what is our beautiful essence, what is our creator essence, what is our power, which is ultimately what they want from us. It's not money. It's not about money. It's about what we are ultimately.
Yeah.
Then they have to take that away from us, and if you want it back, you have to then see the truth of the illusion, which people in the truth community have. But the problem is, it's not just that. You can't just see it. You then have to detach from that system, detach from the patterns, and to do that, you have to go through an emotional experience where you have to turn those systems back on in you, and you have to be heart expanded again, and you have to get the imagination working in, and you have to reconnect to your creator and source and that energy of creation. And that takes a process. It's not just, okay, I see the truth, and now I'm that. You have to unpeel, unveil, and detach, and then reconnect and beautifully self-love and self-care that those pieces of equipment back into. It's a bit like finding an old vintage car. When you find the old vintage car and it's this beautiful motor, you find it and you realize you realize what it is, and it's been hidden. You then have to polish it and
like stripping the paint off the door.
Yeah, polish it and put everything back together and love it and care for it, and then take it out for rides and practice driving it, and then it will purr, and it will give you pleasure, and it will give you joy, it will give you bliss.
And then maybe even become accustomed to those people who are standing on the side of the road who go, oh, look at that knobhead driving his fancy vintage car.
And you feel nothing, because you know that it brings you joy, and then hopefully you're sharing that joy and letting other people drive it, and then other people, because then the ego doesn't come into play and go, oh, it's only mine.
Well, teaching other enthusiasts how to
do their own,
refurbish their own.
And inviting people in to use your equipment to refurbish their own vintage car. But we have this ability, and I think that's what brings about the consciousness to the point where we're creating an Eden-like, or a more Eden-like, because the darkness is not going away. The darkness is here to stay, but it certainly needs to be put in its place.
Yeah, I think that's an important perspective, is that the darkness never goes away.
No, you accept it. You accept that it's part of you.
Part of nature.
I have darkness in me.
Mm.
There are parts of me that I have to accept and love, even though they are not perfect. But they are. I'm a whole being. I'm everything. I'm all.
Yeah. Hey, Hyper Ellie 5. I was. Gracie says it's so like an eagle when you're surrounded by turkeys. Yeah. And hi, Miss Chan.
Imagine the turkeys aren't turkeys, though.
Yeah. What are the turkeys?
I don't know. Imagine them whatever you want them to be. Maybe they're pretty turkeys with beautiful feathers.
Yeah. Eagles that don't fly. If only our pineal glands were the size of lemons again. Oh, the things we would accomplish. World War IV broadsword says, and thanks about your 8 inches comment. World War IV will be fought with sticks and stones. Who knows if we're not in World War III already. Hi, Andrea, Gracie says. Hey, Lizzie Diamond. It's really nice to see you, brother. And Nathan, National Memorial. Thanks, sending love and strength. I think that's probably all we'll do. It's always nice to see you, Drew. I know Mark was saying something probably relative to what I was saying a little while ago. Seek ye first the kingdom, and don't sell your soul to the devil. I think it's about something like what he was kind of saying.
Can I just say something?
Squirrel science is to conform or not to conform. That is the question.
Can I just give
Please do. Hey, Rita. Yes, you. Andrew wants to say something.
Just very quickly, something that I was taught because I've done therapy over the years, realizing that there was something wrong with my programming, and it was a particular situation where I had a manager who was quite an ugly man, and he used to treat his staff, including me, with quite badly. The way he spoke to us, the words he used, it was just his energy that he brought into the room, and everybody was afraid of him. And I remember talking to my therapist about this, and he was saying, well, it's all about perspective, and if when he walks into the room, you allow him to be this big, horrible thing, then that's what he becomes to you, and that's the intimidation he'll bring to you. If you start to imagine him as this much smaller man, or you can even think of him as something else, and I think I used at this time
a rat.
As a little rat. So he's still this this sort of darker being, but he was a little rat, but he was little. And he had these little pink eyes, and every time he came into the room, he would just be making these little squeak noises. And it worked. It worked. He lost his power. It didn't mean he disappeared. It didn't mean he went anywhere. But for me, he lost his power. So I say that today, remember to not make the darkness into the beast and this big, powerful thing. You think about the Disney movies and Cruella de Vil. Cruella de Vil is they make her into this really horrible, powerful, cruel woman, but because, you know, we give them that power. So be mindful not to make Gracie, to make the turkeys into these big horrible turkeys.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, well, that was useful. And actually, Pirelli says in reality the Second World War was lost. Well, depends on who. I think the world wars were lost by humanity. I agree with you on that. But if you were the banking or the system, then they won. I don't think, you know, the German American allies axis of evil conversation is really only for the media and for the sheeple, for the people. Really, at the end of the day, the system is engineering the wars, and they win them all, because, you know, it's a bit like the NFL or the, you know, whatever. They win every time. That doesn't the team that plays and loses, the fans that go home happy or sad, makes no difference to the NFL. The NFL makes $1 billion every time. You see, so the banking system and the system of control won more control, which is why I'm comfortable with this concept that the Bush family, who run America, and the Trump, they're all Germans. They're all actually from German stock, and the royal family here in the UK are Germans. You know, wherever the nexus of control is, it's them that's pulling, is creating these wars. So yes, we may feel like, oh, our team won, the Allies won, or whatever, but the people lost. The people lost. And I think this is what I've said for a long time now, is that if you choose, we lose. The moment you choose a team and say, this is my team, I'm English, I wear the English flag, and I, you know, 3 lions on my chest and all that crap, you lose. We lose. You know, it's in the choosing of teams, that my team against your team is simply playing the game of the banker, simply playing the game of the beast, because we are all one. And so getting into that mindset of, you know, are we the winners or the losers, is, well, we're always, the moment you're in that, you've lost, and we lose more as a consequence of that. So now I think this is meant to be learning along this way, is that we are one humanity, and we are giving away that humanity to some sort of beast system every time we choose. Every time you know, you may hate what the NFL stands for, but every time you wear one of their shirts or watch one of their adverts, or you know, put your energy into the game, you're actually contributing to it. And I mean, this is the funny thing in this country, like footballers at the top level are paid extreme amounts of money, and most people will say, oh yeah, it's terrible how much they pay, but I'm going down to the game. It's only, you know, I'm going down to the game on Saturday to watch the game. So, you know, you're actually part of the problem. You know, and so the people lost. There's no winners in war, other than the system, and the system just gets to kind of constrict the human story through and nature, through more rules, more borders, more border controls, more taxes, more minds lost in that game of my team against their team, and I'm actually going to go and play for their team. You know, I'm going to be a soldier in that army to defend my people against those people. Well, you're not defending those people, and this is when they have like a Zika virus or a coronavirus. This is what they're cleverly doing, is they're actually cleverly getting you to say, oh, we need, you know, you people in power. You know, you're immediately giving them that power to protect us from, now not a person, but from a virus. So this is why I think that we're in the Third World War already, is because we're all under attack, and we're under attack by cleverer means than simply the old school rifle or artillery and so on. It's and I because we're near an American Air Force base here, you know, I do wonder whether. But this is going off on another tangent. I won't bother with that now, because I want to have a coffee and talk to
I like
Andrea.
coffee.
Brought us in yeah, Drew, more of the same old problem, reaction, solution. But, you know, they always want us to blame the other team, you know, and that's how they get us distracted from blaming or looking at the system as a total system. Divest from the shit show. Yeah. Broadwell says, in war, palaces, cathedrals, and buildings are never bombed, are they? Yeah. Only the poor people area. Yeah, I mean, that's generally the case. I mean, I wanted to offer something. Now you say that. I wanted to offer something to the mud flood conversation or the reset conversation, and that is that, yes, you know, it's amazing how some of these structures manage to survive, but equally I think sometimes they do pull certain buildings that don't fit the narrative and don't that are hard to explain. And the World Fairs that have gone on around the world are typically either somehow, like the Crystal Palace, burnt down in a mysterious fire, or demolished after the year of the World's Fair and so on. And when you look at these buildings, they are staggeringly beautiful. Now, oftentimes they are just the most grand buildings that you can imagine. And these are built apparently in the 1800s and so on. And even today, I mean, today they would take a decade to build, if we could build them. And we would want to tear these things down. So I had this thought recently that I've been wanting to share to the wider community. At the millennium, the year 2000 that was approaching, and we'd been in London for 5 or 6 years by that point. London, one of the world's leading cities and one of the richest cities in the world, home to the City of London, was deciding what it could do to mark the millennium. I mean, this is a massive moment in the story, right? So what are they going to do? Bearing in mind that back in the 1800s, simple folk with horse and cart and carriage built these magnificent buildings, and they were able to tear them down after just a year of use. What did London do? It built the Millennium Dome. The Millennium Dome is essentially just a tent. So here we are at the beginning of the 21st century. You know, we're technologically is more advanced by eons than we were back then, and all we can manage to build is a tent. Not only that, the tent was billions of pounds overspent on the original budget allocation. It was hard to kind of complete on time, and here we are 20 years later, and that tent is still standing. That tent is still in use. That cheap shit piece of crap that you know a child could have designed is still standing, and yet these World Fair buildings, which were staggering in their beauty and complexity and grandeur, would rip down in just a year because they were no longer needed after the World Fair. See, these are the sorts of inconsistencies with the story that, a bit like the 8 inches, really when you start to pick past the initial propaganda, it no longer stacks up. So I just wanted to share that. The Millennium Dome in London, in Greenwich, still stands 20 years after it, and it was just a tent. It's just a tent. A big tent, but still, just a tent. Nothing special. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this hour and a half now, and I'm going to continue talking about this impossible measurements, and why I think it's important, because as I say, is that just at 100 meters, at 200 meters, 100 meters should have 60 meters of drop, if this is the dimensions. I'm not going to go over that. I'm not going to go over it again. I've already spoken about it. But hit the thumbs up if you want to, and
yeah, have a good day. Have
Yeah.
a heart expanded day. Have a
Yeah.
heart expanded day.
Yeah.
We
yeah. Oh yeah, well, Quantum of Consciousness has done tons of content on welfare. I haven't seen a lot. I know he's done something recently on it, but
Yes, I
I
saw
would
that
I
too.
would credit Martin Leake and Lee from the Flat Earth British team, and yeah, John Levi and UAP and people like that. They've looked at that kind of stuff a lot, but it's you know it's quite obvious that there are some grand buildings that survive the bombing attacks and so on. And yes, I think a lot of East London in World War II, you know, the Battle of Britain, all those air raids and stuff. I think a lot of that was about clearing the certain areas for redevelopment. Because we do in our minds and in our reality, we live in a prison, and we're never going to free ourselves. I guess, you know, coming back to what I was saying earlier on, if people choose the option of I'll just carry on going back to work, we'll never free ourselves. So let's try and have a wonderful day, you two, darling, and thanks for your help and support. Effie Mix, nice to see you. It was nice to see your you've probably seen Jack's car, and it was nice to see you giving kudos there, and great work. Keep it going, bro. And we're looking forward to seeing Jack. And there is a small UK university tour that's been organised by a few people. Sven, I think, and Robin, Lifting the Lid, have been working behind the scenes on pulling that together. I've been invited down to the Bournemouth Day, which I think they've arranged to have it on while the university's on holiday, so perhaps they need to rethink that date, because you do want to have a captive audience. Anyway, take care, friends, and I'll... Oh, you had a look at the Millennium Dome? It looks amazing. Yeah, but it's nothing like the World Fairs stuff, you know? And the point is that it's 20 years since they built it and it's still standing. And yet after a year, they ripped these much more impressive buildings down. Glyph, hi, and thank you. God bless you too. Have a great day. See you soon.